Welcome back. I'm Stephen Hahn-Griffiths, Executive Vice President at the Red Truck Company. It's my privilege to be part of this Power of Purpose Summit today. And I just want to say thanks in advance to Inc. Magazine for making this all possible and to Strawberry Frog for inviting me to moderate this discussion. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Sally Sussman, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Pfizer. Hi, Sally. Great to chat with you today.
Hi, Stephen. Great to be with you as well. Thank you.
So, Sally, let's just jump right in. Pfizer's purpose is to discover breakthroughs that change patients' lives. And my goodness, that endeavor could not have rung truer since the past 12 months when Pfizer discovered, tested, and rolled out the vaccine that effectively helped save the human race with its COVID-19 discovery. But Sally, I'm sure this wasn't all easy, especially when your starting point was inhibited by some of the persisting misperceptions around big pharma. So maybe we can start by looking back in the past. It must have been very frustrating. What was it like back then, and what do you think was driving some of those misperceptions around pharma?
Stephen, one of the things I could never understand is how companies like Pfizer and other biopharmaceutical companies that made life-saving medicines had such abysmal reputations. And in fact, that's why I came to Pfizer in the first place. I had worked at some other consumer products companies that had terrific reputation, lots of great affection for these companies, and they did nice things. But I was looking at a company that makes great investment and takes huge risks for life-saving medicines. They had terrible reputations, almost next to tobacco. And I thought I would come here and understand it and probably fix this in about 2 years' time. That was a great professional challenge to me. 12 years later, I was still working on the same problem and I understood it better, but I really hadn't fixed it and didn't get the opportunity to do so until the pandemic and our response with our COVID-19 vaccine.
So what do you think was getting in the way? Because as you've said, your company is about ultimately saving lives, and this endeavor has been a noble pursuit for scores of years as the entire pharma industry is motivated by helping humankind. Why do you think pharma companies got such a poor rap? Was it the way they were telling this story, or was there some underlying veil of skepticism or something else getting in the way of your potential to earn a stronger reputation?
My research to try to answer that probing question of yours said that it wasn't a single answer. It wasn't a solitary problem. It was a set of things. One is an arrogance that the industry had developed at one point. Another problem was a sort of defensiveness and an entrenchment on our part. We weren't out there as much as we should. We were sort of behind the fortress walls of our companies. There also is just the fact that when you're talking about people's health and providing medicine, it's a very emotional topic. It's not like you're providing a lipstick or a credit card. It's a life and death thing. And if your child is sick or your parents are sick, the emotions run very high. And there was a lot we needed to do and we're beginning to do to bridge that gap and to create greater trust. But it was a long-term uphill project for a long time.
Very much appreciate that. And yet as a company, you were able to sort of look beyond the here and now, and you had this incredible North Star, your purpose that you were driving towards. So I'd love to hear more about what was the inspiration behind that purpose? Where did it come from, and how did it become derived within the walls of Pfizer?
Thank you so much. It means so much to us. We launched our purpose, Breakthroughs That Change Patients' Lives, in January of 2020. And that's when Albert Bourla became our CEO. And Albert and the executive team on which I serve felt that we really needed to attach ourselves to a patient-centric purpose. And there are really two key words in that purpose. One is breakthroughs, that we weren't interested in chasing Me Too innovations or small incremental improvements, but true life-altering breakthroughs. And the second most important word in that purpose statement is patients, and it change patients' lives. Our medicines and innovations and vaccines aren't of value if people can't access them. So we wanted to really lean into the science of breakthroughs and also the accessibility of our medicine, and that it should be equitable and accessible to all. So we were already undergoing this transformation and becoming much more purposeful before the pandemic hit.
So as you think about that, looking ahead now, perhaps more to the future, how does your purpose shape and redefine the destiny, not just of the here and now and where your company is, but what it might mean for the future?
It means everything for our future. When the pandemic came, we decided to basically go for it. And we put $2 billion at risk. We didn't take any government money. We're the only company that didn't. We wanted to unleash our scientists to be able to go as quickly as they could. We took a process of drug discovery that tends to be a very linear process and did everything at once, even starting to manufacture ahead of approvals, because we knew if it worked, we were going to need it and need it fast. And so what we now have is, first and foremost, a huge proof point that working this way can have incredible outcomes for people. The second thing is we now have a reputation to live up to. And so what I think you'll see at Pfizer going forward is a commitment to more bold thinking, more breakthroughs, moving with urgency and having an appetite for risk. And we have no interest in going back to the past. I think that probably makes perfect sense to you. We're on a trajectory and we want to keep going.
So incredible, all the great work you're doing as a company and without question, doing all the right things. But I suppose the other half of the equation is getting credit for it and knowing how to speak to that greater sense of purpose, that North Star and fulfillment of that promise. So what are some of the things you've learned in terms of how do you speak to your purpose and how do you unscore it in the court of public opinion in delivering the story in the most authentic and genuine way possible?
Credit again here goes to my boss, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, because when he pulled together the small group of people that would sort of be next to him at the epicenter of this vaccine work, it was of course the scientists, the manufacturing experts who figured out how to develop, not only develop, but produce a huge number of vaccines and get them around the world, the regulatory people, clinical trial experts, et cetera. But he also included me. And I think that was profound, not only because it was the greatest experience in my professional life, but also, and more importantly, because we knew that the public discussion of this work was as crucial as any other part. I mean, imagine, Stephen, the tragedy if we developed a vaccine that no one had the confidence to take. And given the speed with which we were moving and the new technology, our mRNA technology, which was brand new technology for vaccine, there could have been, far, far greater skepticism. But because Albert prioritized it and I had the opportunity to lead it, we did many things differently. Just for one example, we published our clinical trial protocols on our website. In the past, that would not have happened. That's proprietary information that the scientists want to hold dear. But we couldn't afford skepticism, and we really leaned into transparency. That was one thing. Just another one I'll mention quickly is we made ourselves continuously and constantly available and accessible. The number of interviews, the open door policy. We had Nat Geo and their documentary team in the building, in the labs, in the factories, filming us during the whole process before we even knew whether we were going to be successful. That's how high the stakes were for public support of this effort.
It was an audacious undertaking, delivered with courage and commitment like I've never seen before. It's truly incredible how we can look at Pfizer and almost claim that as the noble white knight within the pharma industry, you've in many ways sort of saved the destiny of humankind. So thank you for everything you've done as a company. But I'm sure in the eye of the storm and all the fast-moving dynamics, it must have been incredibly difficult to make decisions and rightful choices. The $2 billion bet that you've talked about, but even beyond that, the opportunity to tell your story is impacted by so many things. So as you were making decisions, how did you prioritize who the narrative was aimed at? Did you start with employees? Did you talk to the media? Did you invest in paid for communication channels? What discerning choices did you make looking back that you thought had the highest impact in driving the story?
That's a great question. I feel that perhaps for the first time in my career, all audiences merged into one. The kind of audience dissection that tends to happen in our work really wasn't possible or feasible or maybe even advisable. Our colleagues were also scared citizens. Our our website became a content vehicle to the media, to government officials around the world. So what I prioritized more than, to which stakeholder we would go was a continuous and constant, very transparent and candid dialogue about what was happening inside the company. I felt it was essential that people wanted to know that. And again, was our availability. So for example, we would receive calls from heads of state to Albert Bourla, our CEO, prime ministers, presidents, kings wanting to talk to him about supply. And typically I'd say, would you like us to call back and see what they want? Would you like me to have a local country manager return that call? And in almost every case, he took the call himself. And that kind of personal touch that people know we were there working 24/7 and we would answer your call was really, really meaningful.
Incredible how that transparency paid such great dividends to your company, and your reputational gains are almost unprecedented in the past 12 months. But I'd hazard a guess it wasn't all perfect inside looking out, and I'm sure along the way there might have been decisions you might have made differently. So what's perhaps one example, looking back, of something you might have done differently knowing what you know today?
Believe me, there were more than one or two things we could have done differently and better. The one that comes most quickly to mind is I think we could have been quicker to understand the global nature of this crisis. For a while in my mind, it was something that was happening in China. And we had a task force to work with our colleagues in China to understand what was happening, to make protocols around remote work and these sort of things. And this crisis taught us a lot, but one thing I'll never forget is that the world is so deeply interconnected because of travel, because of technology. Something that is happening all the way across the world is really happening in your backyard as well at the same time. And we could have been quicker in those months of February, March, April 2020.
Yeah, but amazing how literally in the space of 12 months, the whole process has revealed itself to where we are today, where a high percentage of the world is all now vaccinated, thanks to Pfizer and many of your peer competitors. And I guess if you think about where your purpose is taking you as a company, it's elevated expectations. In many ways, it's become a lofty commitment to fulfilling your purpose as part of this new era of the post-pandemic world. So how are you going to juggle that kind of commitment of being this sort of new hero in the world? And what does that now mean for the future of what Pfizer can be associated with kind of on the road ahead? Where does this take you as a company?
Well, again, we learned a lot and continue to learn as we go forward. Certainly during the pandemic, we worked very collaboratively across the industry and thought of our competitor as the virus itself. And that's an interesting shift, that the enemy becomes disease or other burdens that patients feel. The other thing is, believe me, we feel so humble when I get photos from friends or texts from relatives saying they saw grandma for the first time in a year, thank you. I get chills, I tear up. We are truly humbled by the response the world has had to the reopening created by vaccines made by Pfizer and others. But in terms of going forward, it feels like an incredible moment of opportunity. First of all, mRNA technology itself could be used for many other things, whether it's cancer or other severe diseases. When we learned that the vaccine was effective at the super high rates, that it is effective, our chief scientist said, oh my God, this is the biggest medical breakthrough in a century. So I'm excited to see what other breakthroughs and treatments and preventions and cures we can create through mRNA technology and other scientific advances.
Well, Sally, I feel like I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately we're almost up on our time, and perhaps with those words of wisdom, we're going to wrap up today. And just want to say thank you, Sally, for your time. Those were incredible words of encouragement and enlightenment, and we so appreciate what you do and everyone else at Pfizer has done for us all as the human civilization. So keep well and keep those incredible breakthroughs coming.
Thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Take care.